Yes.
Hey, hi, everybody. Hi, Chris. Here.
Hey, Michelle. But no, I was on mute.
I'm gonna call the whole meeting into session. Monday, May 8th, it's 5:30 p.m. And we are going to interview our first candidate. That really cuts long. I'm gonna just put a timer on, not to make anybody nervous, just so we can appropriately. Okay. So I want to thank you so much for coming. It's great to see you. I just, want to start off the conversation by just tell us a little bit about yourself. Why you decided to get your application.
Okay, my name is Dr. Alicia Sloan. I currently have several jobs, mainly based around, I own two separate businesses. One is research, and I tell people that I think for other people. And then my other one, I own a dance studio. Both businesses have been 2016, 2017. I also teach at Kent. I'm in geography. My PhD is in geography, urban geography, my expertise. I put in my application. I'm the type that doesn't like to stand in front of the crowd. I like to stand in front of the crowd. I do that in both of my business, helping children and helping adults, with launching their businesses and helping with their current business as well. I have a ton of education. I'm working on my 6th and 7th. I'm currently preparing to go to law school and medical school at Case. With my education, I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of work experience. I've been working since I was 14. I'm almost 41. So with my knowledge and experience, I believe that the administration and the residents of University Heights can really benefit from what I am able to do, my skills. And also, like, the work, I've been studying cities since I was a little kid. That's what my and those skills have transferred to my adult life. Current research that I am doing is actually under contract with a major academic publishing company, and the work that I've done, research that I've done, can help.
Somehow there must be a way of getting this to full screen, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So the work that I've been doing, they feel, and others have feel, that it can help other cities. Use that for other cities.
And if you're appointed, did you run for council in November?
All the questions to that. So Wow, you do a lot. It's really, really incredible. So this does take a lot of time. You feel that you'll have time to put towards a campaign, put towards council, and do all the things that you do.
Absolutely. Anytime I add something to my schedule, I make sure that I'm able to fully commit. If I can't, then I let anybody know that I can't, I don't have time to do this. So I've thought about that already. With everything that I do, like as far as my research clients, that takes place at 3 and 4 in the morning when everybody's sleeping. My studio time, I'm there roughly 15, 16 hours a week. And all of the other work that I do, it works around what I need to do. I'm very, I'm very by the book of myself. I know what I can do, what I can't. I don't go into something with half of the effort.
So you would possibly postpone for.
No, I talked to them about that already. They're actually pursuing me. They're actually thinking about changing their program to fit me. So, yeah. Can't explain that, because their program has been the same for however long it's been running. But when I went there for my interview a couple months ago, I was there for about 3 hours. And I didn't end the meeting. They ended up saying, "Oh, we're gonna figure out how to make this work." So.
I realized there was a question. I don't want to respond. I just want to start.
Better than like,
Absent last week, so I missed something. But if I could even ask follow-up questions about the campaigning, because, we're looking for somebody to be for November. So there's a time commitment that too. Is that something that you feel comfortable?
It's funny, like recreationally, my daughter and I have walked the majority of University Heights already. We did it, yes. We walked about. When we take walks, we're out walking for about 4 hours, and it's not because I want to, it's because she wants to, but I do it too. So it's not something, it's something that I'm used to anyway. So I will make the time.
so on that thing, why haven't you run before?
In my interest letter, I wrote that I've been here 12 years and the first 9-10 years was pretty quiet. And I wanted to get involved, but it's intimidating when I don't know too many people. So I think the first thing that I got involved with was First University Heights Fall Festival. And then from there, it was all down. It's like, oh my God, I want to do more of this. And, little side note, growing up, I really didn't have family support for anything. So I'm not used to community. But then when I went to that event, I got a little taste of it. And like I said, I'm always like, oh, what else can I do? So I guess it was, stepping stone until.
Dr. Salmon, what do you see as, or know as some of the major issues facing our city president?
So being here personally, any major issues that would cause me to contact a member of the administration. I have actually been very happy here. What I would like to see is more community engagement. So I like what's going on around here, but I would like it if we were year round. That would be something that I would want to work to. And then I'm the type that likes to reach the unreachable. So if there is something, I believe that there's something for everybody, not like to build upon that so that everybody.
But aside from the community engagement, like think about that. I mean, what are the issues that the city is? Did you follow the council meetings?
I know about issue with recycling trash, refuse. That is one issue that I have found. And I think that if there are, I support sustainability. If there are practices that are currently used that can help save city money and in turn help the environment. I would fully support that.
What else?
That is actually
Do you follow council meetings? I don't.
not as of yet.
Would you be willing to share a challenging situation face? Yes.
Sure. I own a dance studio and COVID that shut down for 6 months. That wasn't just a hit on me, it was a hit on my students. One thing I do for my students, I give them somewhere to go. And coming back, I had to show my families that it was a safe place, it was a healthy place, it was a sanitized place. And that didn't, it worked, but at the same time, there's a fear that it's COVID. So I had to get creative to pay my bills because I had over 70 students before COVID and 13 came back. So because of my background with research, I had to become creative, pulling new students in. And then when I got those students to the door, I had to ensure my parents that, again, it was a safe, healthy place. And I had to give them a reason to want to come because I'm a smaller studio and there are other larger studios around. So that whole thing of community, I had to build that and show them that this was a place that they like to be in. I'm actually very proud of that. I'm larger than I was before.
Yeah, it was, I appreciate that example, sure. Do you have an example of when you may have faced a situation that involved conflict and how you resolve? What's your style in the event that you faced it?
I can't recall anything in particular, and that might be because people in, I have the two businesses I have are completely different, and my clients in both of those arenas say that I'm very resilient and stoic. If an issue comes towards me, I face it like this was gonna happen regardless. Let's figure it out. Let's not panic, and whatever happens, that's what happened. But we'll survive. So that's how I approach almost all situations.
Okay. Hello, yeah. What are some of the attributes that you can bring to the table that would help the city if you're on council?
Sure. So I've taught all ages, every single age group that you would think of. And from each of those groups that I've taught, I've acquired skills that are transferable to this seat. Taught preschoolers. So with that, I am very good at communicating. You can't be vague with a 3-year-old because they're not going to be able to follow directions. So I'm very succinct and very clear about directions and information that I convey. With school agers, you know, you can't just be succinct and clear, you have to be engaging. With a 3-year-old, you can snap your fingers and they'll look at that for an hour and be surprised. Can't do that with a 7-year-old because they're already not snap. So you have to learn how to be in jazz hands or whatever, you know, to keep them engaged. So I'm very engaging with people and I'm very good at getting people involved. With high schoolers, you have to learn how to do all that and de-escalate because most of them have attitudes. I have a 16-year-old prove that. And that's transferable because I'm very good at de-escalating the situation, as I mentioned before, with facing things head on and figuring out how to resolve the issue as best as possible. With college students, that's where it gets fun. you learn how to collaborate and still have a difference. That's the thing that you really, really learn once you get to college. It's okay to have a difference of opinion, but we both can work together and still get something accomplished. Both can work together, get you out of here so that you can graduate. And then I talk to elderly. Now, the elderly, bless their heart, they're stuck in their ways. And so you just have to face that head on and be nurturing about it. And all of those skill sets transfer to this seat. I know how to handle every group with handling issues, communicating, that other good stuff. So those are some of my.
Thank you.
What are some of the goals you want to accomplish as a councilperson?
Everything with me goes back to engagement, and with engagement, I want to raise awareness. I'm a good listener, so with the residents, that's what I plan to do. I don't, like I said, I haven't had a problem in University Heights, so it's a wonderful place to live. I've been here 12 years, and I actually don't plan on very anytime soon. So I would like to speak or be a listening ear to the residents and basically go from there. As I mentioned, going back to community engagement, I would like to do more year-round stuff, not just events, but one issue that I have had kind of personally, but not really, is a small issue with my landlord. I don't know what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So I think educating, I would like to see more education for tenants' rights, as well as what landlords are actually allowed to do. So I would like to do be more involved with that.
Have you ever legislation?
No, so dealing with my landlord, and it's kind of gray. I look at the Ohio Revised Code a lot. I work at a law firm for 12 years. The city one, okay, it's more detailed, yeah, okay. But with that, I'm sure that there are other people in that same boat. So I would like to be a helping hand to them as well.
I want to thank you, Dr. Swope. Is there anything, any final words this time? Yeah. Turn off her phone. Okay. Is there any last party words? Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You know how okay. Yeah.
There's the meeting tonight, charter, that's what it is.
First.
Oh, that makes, sense. Oh,
Yeah.
good, okay. Very accommodating. Already know everybody.
Well, I don't know everyone. Want to thank We're just gonna all take a turn to ask some questions.
Okay.
Not put a timer on, so get nervous. I want to just maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you want to run for council.
Well, I've lived in University Heights for 8 years. I am licensed. I worked at Belfair. Did all sorts of things from childcare work to administration. I left there and went down to work at the public defender's office, where I found my niche heart. I love working with people and adults. I learned more about adults working here, and I really enjoy working with adults more than kids, although I do. My heart is with those teenagers who are beating up. I developed several programs at Belfair that I feel pretty proud about. They came out of a need that I felt was missing in the services there. And it was a grind to get there, but we did. And those two, one of those two programs. So I feel pretty proud of that. And it was something that I have been working in a way with the community in University Heights for the last, I can't remember whether it's 11 or 12 years, but started as having block parties. Part of the purpose was that, well, my impetus was to get to know my neighbors. I saw one of my neighbors being carried out on a stretcher. And I thought, wow, I don't even know him. I don't know. I've seen him before. I've never met him, waved at people. And I thought we have to do better. We have to at least know a little bit about our neighbors. Know a lot, but enough that we can be helpful. And so 11 years ago with my neighbors, we got together and we had block parties ever since. During COVID, some people call it drive-through drinking, but we would get together and and just talk, talk about what's going on in our neighborhood, talk about family, talk about how terrible and hard it was to be away from work and all the things that were going on. And it sort of has developed over time. So we've done some things in the community that I feel good about, especially the getting to know my neighbors part. And it's just blossomed. And we had I think it was our 10th anniversary. I think we're going to celebrate it again. About it, but like this year. So that's who I am. I am a strong believer that democracy is not a spectator sport, that you have to be involved. And I really didn't understand that until I got involved. And it was something really simple. Wrote a letter. And couldn't believe that it was read, that it was that the congressman called me, that it was part of Federal Register as part of support for a bill that was being offered. And I began to understand that, not everybody does that. I thought that was a thing, but it wasn't. And I now understand that it's important, especially for things that are important to the people that are around.
And if you were appointed to council, plan on running again?
I hope to. I mean, I would love to say yes, absolutely. I have never been involved in politics before. I don't know what that's like, but it is my intention. Yes.
So that really resonated with me when you talked So what do you know to be some of the major issues?
Well, I know the big ugly issue is around recycling and curbside waste pickup. I know that safety is a big issue in the community. I've, seen some of the statistics around that in the community. I'm not sure, I certainly don't have the answers, but
Do you follow the council meetings?
I do, not as, I have found, not every week. And it's been a lot more difficult mornings, but I have. I think, development in our city to be able to bring more business into our community and to try to work through some of the issues about that. Pretty liberal community, and some things that, some of us don't always agree with, but, we do live in live in a place where people can work and play and be able to believe in whatever they believe in.
Many of the current projects. Commitment. 1 to 4 meetings a week. And so, also, do you schedule a time?
Yes.
Different. Would you be willing to share a situation that is challenging? And how you address it?
Challenging in general or
Anything you want to be personal, professional. More specifically, perhaps something with conflict involved. How do you? Okay.
part of my job is to speak to people who have experienced maybe the worst day of their life in having their children. And so they are in turmoil, to say the least. It's traumatic for them, it's traumatic for their children. And so that's, I kind of deal with conflict all the time. And I also work with 20 attorneys who, they kind of like that kind of, conflict is their thing. And as it should be, they're fighting for the rights.
Hello. What attributes do you have that you could bring to the table if appointed to council?
Well, I think that I have lived long enough and have a lot of experience in dealing with conflict, as this is brought up. One of my, I think an attribute that I have is that I'm really patient. I read this article that says sometimes you have to let a fire burn out before you can stir the ashes. So, sometimes if there is an issue that is emotional, is intellectually, there's a difficulty, it's important to be able to listen, but also to take a step back and be able to understand, try to understand and work through some of the issues. And I do that every day at work. I sometimes do that personally. And I think I could bring that.
I think you answered the second part of my question, which would be how. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
That's your style.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the goals you want to accomplish as a council person?
Wow, goals. I don't know whether these are goals. I know that there are things that I would like to see accomplished through the council. I would like to definitely step away a little bit from the issues around recycling and at least educate the public about recycling. It's just so important on so many levels, and it's really not that. To know the difference between, I just had this discussion with some people that I was talking with about what's recyclable and what's not. It just needs to happen. And I am pretty committed to doing whatever I can do to make that. The other issues about recycling are kind of an issue that I don't know all the particulars about, so I can't really speak. I would really like to reach out more to our community. I've seen a lot of ways that our council on the website and in the real world do reach out. But I've also been told that there are some parts of our city that don't get attention. Now, that's not my opinion. That was the opinion of the person who said it to me, who is a part of this administration. And I didn't understand it. And so I would like to make sure that that happens in a way that is meaningful to people and that they feel like they're heard. So those are some of the things that I think are really important.
And I have a question about, you know, the amount of time, 7.5 months.
Right.
Until the end of the term.
Right.
So there's very little time to give some type of training. You really have to hit the ground running,
Yes.
especially if you're going to campaign for November. So I guess tell me a little bit about what you know about University Heights specific, not the issues that you described earlier, but just in general, statistics of University Heights. Are you following a little bit about city government, budget cycles, you know, stuff like that? I know you went off of the Charter Review Commission, so you know a lot about our charter.
Right.
Just tell us a little bit about that so we have a good comfort knowing that 7.5 months know about us.
And that was one of the things that I wanted to consider in being a part of this process. What was I going to be able to do in 7 months? But to answer your question, I mean, I know we have 14,000 people. I know that 70% of our population is white, 30% is other, African-American and other. I know that the median income in our city, I know what the housing stock is like. I know some of the issues, though I have to tell you, I don't know many of them. The Charter Commission has taken up a lot of my time. And I haven't really delved deeply, but when things come up, you know, I get involved like hope other citizens would do. So those are, I know John Carroll is a big part of the things that we do. And there's a lot of talk about BP and why it's not there anymore. So I do know a little bit, but I have to tell you, I don't know probably as much as I'd like to. But I am eager to learn.
Mine is almost up. Is there any parting remarks that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think that many of you know, sort of the elephant in the room. My husband passed away 2 weeks ago. I had to think long and hard about whether I would be sitting in this chair. It was something that he and I both believed in as far as being involved in government. And although his passing has certainly made me take a step back, in general, it was something that we both thought was important. And because of that, that's wow. And so. I don't, want anyone's thing, although I'm not gonna say that I'm not 100%. I mean, I'm 100% because I'm not. But this is core of what I and continue to do that, whether I'm on council. So I'm not saying that you should choose me, but I am going to participate in university government regardless.
Thank you so much.
Sure, like we do.
Help yourself to water.
That's okay.
I'm glad I could help you out, Sherry. Just curious, did everybody, for the interviews, all the interviewees show up today? Or was there anybody that was not able to?
Believe everyone is able to.
Just curious.
Thank you for coming. I'm just gonna set a timer of 15 minutes. Want to start off by, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, why you want to be for council?
And I've been in University for the past 5 years. I am a veteran of the United States Navy, as well as a retired educator. Here's my bachelor's degree in science and education from Cleveland State University. After that, I went on to obtain my master's in education specialist degree. I have 2 children who attended Cleveland Heights University High School. I'm also am currently serving, well, actually, I did take telephone calls for the hearing impaired. I served on the Community Service Committee for the Order of the Eastern Stars, the Queen Elizabeth Chapter 9. I also am on the North Cliff Neighbors Committee. I also serve on University Heights. I serve on our charter review commission. And I'm actually interested in being on city council because I want to serve the community. I want to be a voice for our residents. I am interested in maintaining the safety, the unity of our community, the beauty of our community, and the growth of our.
And if you were appointed, are you planning to run in November?
Absolutely. I would like to remain and serve this community as long as the residents have me.
What you know about the major issues that the city is involved in, not just recycling.
takes a level of discussion, but the other things that.
So I'm familiar with the John Carroll University what is it, mixed use development plan. And I'm also aware of the medical building on Cedar. And the fact that they want to put Chick-fil-A there. I also am familiar with the redevelopment plan of University Circle. Who other issues? I also am aware of the Alexander Schultz house issue that was a really big issue.
This is a large time commitment. Can your schedule accommodate being on council, running for council? And
Yes, my schedule is flexible, so I can plan around the meeting and anything else I need to. Okay.
not all of them. It happens. You want to be in the know. So, I have a question. Would you be willing to share a challenging situation you face, perhaps one involving conflict, and how you resolve it? How you handle it? How is it resolved?
A previous colleague that was in a managerial position. And she often responded to emails in all caps. So colleagues and I were, and we wanted to bring it to her attention, proper email etiquette. And so they collectively decided to select me as the person to bring it to her attention because of my positive nature and my calm spirit. So I explained to her that the emails in all caps are interpreted as yellow, and she was not aware of that. But that turned out to be an okay situation, and as a result of our interactions surrounding that, we ended up building a pretty good working relationship.
Thank you for sharing.
Hello. Would you be able to describe some of the attributes that you would be able to bring to council if you were appointed?
Sure. I work well with groups. I'm very detail oriented. I love working with people. I am a pretty respectful and professional person. And my military background as well as education allowed me to have opportunities to be a team player as well as working with decisions and choices and to protect our country, our local communities, and our children. And I'm really like enthusiastic about this. This is very important to me. I have vested interest in our community. And as I said, I want to continue to see the growth and again, the unity and the safety in our.
Thank you. What are some of the goals you'd like to accomplish as a council person?
I want to work collectively with all of the council members, and I would like to create a professional and cohesive relationship with everyone, including our executive branch.
Can you elaborate, well, that's a great goal. But anything beyond that?
As far as what I want to accomplish being on city council. So again, I want to make decisions, be a voice for the community. I want to be able to provide constructive feedback and get out there and get to know what the needs and concerns are of our residents and make decisions that are best for them and the city as well. So those are the things that I'm really excited about getting involved.
And then outside of the issues that you discussed, and knowing that there's only 7.5 months for this term until this term expires, you have to be able to hit the ground running. And really our onboarding process will be that. So could you tell us a little bit about what you know about the community? Again, outside the issues, statistics or anything, stats or about our budgeting process, anything that just involves the community. So that you have we need to know that you have a good understanding of the community, given that it's a very short time period, and then the campaign for November starts now. So let us know.
So I do know that we have a budget of between 20 million and $25 million. I know that of that, 80% of it goes towards salary. I also know that our city size is approximately 1.8 miles, 1.8 square miles. And we have about 13,000 plus residents in our city.
Almost out of time. Is there anything that closing remarks you want to make or anything else that you want us to know about you?
Just that I am appreciative of the opportunity to have been considered for this position. I'm very, like I said, enthusiastic about it, and I plan on staying as long if I'm selected, staying as long as the community would have me. My goal is to contribute as much as possible on the council member level.
I'll just say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Also, you taught me something. You're a teacher. I had to look the taxonomy, what are the Bloom's 6 levels of learning. So thanks for.
And thank you all again for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You got the cool.
So, so everybody knows. Want to maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself. Most of us know you already, but A little about your background.
If you don't know my name is Winifred Weiser. I'm a longtime resident of the city. My background is mixed in terms of 25 years of management experience, business-wise. And then a return to the academic setting. I teach in the School of Urban Affairs at Cleveland State. I literally teach courses on management, cities, and the whole 9 yards. We have the public administration. And our urban and regional studies covers things. I spent 5 years in the housing research program, working with Dr. Tom Meyer, who many people may know. So I have a grounding in actual housing research as well. In terms of things, everything from capital gains to also vacancy issues and vacancy change issues. I have to stay up to date. I teach courses where my students push me. I belong to the American Public Works Association and also to the Government Finance Officers Association. I've been on the Citizens Committee for the redevelopment of the Cedar Taylor area, where we were able to assemble the land and then choose a developer to come in and do a joint full development without cost to the city. Actually, I think we did do eminent domain one property who held out, but the rest of it, some of the houses on Jackson that were taken additionally to give depth to that property, we have the developer. I've been on I did serve on council briefly. I've been a member of the council, the finance committee, citizens group, since either 2006 or 2007. It's been a while. So I'm very familiar with the budget process in University Heights. I'm up to date on all of those items as well. GFOA actually gives me a lot of information regarding things like capital lending and spending and so forth. What I get that I think is of interest to the city or important, I also send over to Dennis Committee. Just had a warning come through. I belong to the national, he belongs to the Ohio. So there are some things that come national. Ohio. I've been on the parade committee as a member of the Stormwater Management Committee, which was disbanded under Mayor Pinfeld, where we were already talking about the issues that we have with our sewers that are eventually going to cost us over 100 million to fix. And my master's degree is in public administration, but with a concentration in public works management. Public works management focuses on water, sewers, and city services in terms of sanitation. So, and that's out of the fact that my business experience comes out of manufacturing. So I'm more about guts there. Yeah, I think there may be a few things that I've forgotten. I generally will end up on a committee. I think I was on strategic planning for a while. Very glad to see the city or that the council took that and actually has moved forward and beginning to plan for getting our city buildings redone. I was the chair of the facilities committee that I think it was it was like the second year. Like I was mayor, came in and told council that it was time for you guys to get off your duff. You weren't there, Brian, you're safe. To get off their duff and actually begin to play. The committee was very clear in looking at the city buildings that we needed to do something. And because of our limitations in terms of money, that's going to be a tricky thing to do, but I can pull it.
And if you were appointed.
Yes, you can sign my petitions. I can. You're already full.
So what do you see, what you know to be some of the major issues in our city aside from the whole trash and recycling? I think everybody's.
Okay, I can give you three. I think number one, there has been no comprehensive planning about the sewers. What has been said since back in the day of stormwater management was, oh, we take care of them, we clean them out, we're very careful. That's the engineers. And yes, even one of our previous service directors, Chris Vild, was very, very careful. He was into rain gardens, bioswales, anything we could do that would help us in terms of runoff. But at some point, we are going to have to bite the bullet. NEOSD is not going to let us keep skipping along. They've already nailed Cleveland Heights. They're under a consent decree. Right now, we're sort of just, everybody else can get another couple of years. But we need at least to start thinking about what is it that we really have to do to fix it. I personally was very upset when during the last election, $600,000 of ARPA funds was supposed to be dedicated to begin to address some of those problems. And then the administration pulled that money. That can't keep happening. So if it keeps happening, then when NEOSD comes, it's all of us. We're going to have people in Cleveland Heights bitch about how much extra they are paying for sewer right now because of that consent decree. We can begin to work on it. That is something we need to do. So that's one thing. The second thing I think that we really need to focus on is maybe starting to think of economic development beyond food places. We seem to do real good at getting pizza shop in, but not real good. And I think that became very clear in terms of the Chick-fil-A thing. The other thing that is even more critical that came out of the Chick-fil-A hearing was that the contract that was given to Safe Build, apparently they do not check things to the code, which means we have townhouses that might be built. We have anything that happens with University Square. Our plan is going to come in and just be sent through without checking to the codes. What about the infill houses that Knez built? Were those built without checking to the codes? I mean, our codes are there. People buy these houses assuming that we are building to code. If we're not doing that, that's problematic because that causes a problem in the future. You not get here, well, everybody is sitting in office, or even the current administration's in office, but it will come back to bite you when something happens. And then the third thing that I think is even more critical, this city used to work to communicate with one another. We did not have the kind of divisions that have sprung up in the past 5 years. There is a constant drumbeat from people on one side or the other. Some of it's that roll down the hill of political BS that's out there in the nether world that sort of comes down. But we were proud to be nonpartisan on local elections. And we actually have to learn to work in a nonpartisan fashion at the local level. And the reason for that is very simple. It's something I tell my students. This might be my ideology. That might be my ideology. Both sides have a part of the answer. The strength of the city has always been our ability to accept our differences and embrace them based on religion, race, and even political affiliation. And if we can't get back to that, then we're constantly going to keep seeing a split. And that has to come from the leadership of the city. It cannot come bubbling up down here. We can try it, but we have got to have the elected leadership of the city actually move to do those things.
I'll ask the final question. Thank you. How do you handle conflict? You should be willing to share a challenging situation and how you address.
Challenging situations.
Anything.
I have a lot of them. I work with faculty. Seriously, we're going through, right now at work, we are going through a major change because the university decided to merge our college, which was standalone, with the College of Education, and we have 3 new departments also moved in. So we are in a period of transition where we're dealing with the joys of work, our work plans, what is expected, and I'm on all of those committees. So you get lots of different opinions. I think listening, looking for ways where you can begin to address the problem and then begin to move forward. My students hate this, and probably I've said this to some of you personally. Change is a process. It is not an event. One of the big things that I think has caused the uproar, even garbage situation, was it was like, we're going to do this. And it wasn't a process. When you do process, you allow people to buy in. You begin to hear their best ideas. And their best ideas might not be yours. But if you're willing to listen, you can move forward. It takes compromise. Those are things that I think help knit groups together, help knit cities together. I mean, that to me is part of the challenge. So yeah, I've served on our negotiation committee also for our union. And that was 6 months of negotiation with our administration. It was not pleasant at times, but it's finding a way that things are mutually beneficial to both groups. Those are the things that I think strengthen groups, strengthen organizations, and strengthen communities. That's what you gotta go. So that's, I mean, sort of roundabout.
Well, hello, Lynn. Could you describe some of the attributes that you could bring to council if you are appointed?
I'm sorry.
Could you describe some of your attributes that you could bring to council if appointed?
Historical basis for some things that are here now. I firmly believe if you do not understand where you've been, it's hard to decide where you're going, number one. So I have a sort of built history out of my involvement with the city. Some economic development training in terms of things like negotiations, working with developers, that kind of stuff. A lot out of my management where you deal with things that can be different and people who have different opinions and work to find common solutions. And also I do a tremendous, unfortunately, I do a tremendous amount of reading. So there are things that I can bring, that I can draw on out of the organizations I belong to, out of the knowledge that I have, and out of people that I can pick up the phone and call that are respected in their fields. So sometimes people tell me I know too much. And maybe that's true, but it's just how I was built to retain a tremendous amount of things, and it helps sometimes.
This is a large time commitment, to be on council and, running, yes, you intend to run, she's a, yes. So, although the.
Yeah, they should sign some page. He can't, he's on Zoom, so.
I know.
Sorry about that, I'll get you later.
So, can your schedule accommodate?
Yeah, it can. Even with the craziness right now, technically I go off contract during the summer, although I continue to teach and go back on contract a little early. During the year, I do obviously have enough time because I spend a lot of time going to meetings now.
What kind of, Mr. King's.
Can you tell us some of the goals you'd like to accomplish? The council?
Well, I think the three priorities I had. I'll add a fourth, and that is something I'm becoming more concerned about, and that is safety. We have some major issues that are starting to pop up. We had a drive-by shooting at the top of my street. I understand SWAT was over on Broadway. Those are kinds of things that I think people look at and go, I want to leave. And those are things I would like to see us begin to address in a positive manner. I think we need to look at those kinds of plans where we maybe can get some funding. I don't know, maybe we could run it through CIC where we can get grant funding for specific plans to do some work with preteen and teens about it's not a good idea to pick up a gun. It's a better idea to do some moderation, potentially work with the high schools on that. Those are the kinds of programs that I think can happen, but that has to start with things like how do we fund them? And that kind of step is something that I'm very familiar with because we also do nonprofit management in my shop.
Thank you. Any parting words?
Thanks for the interview. I really appreciated it.
You're in. You're in.
Thanks.
Please, Martha. Therese. Martha.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the council.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sean Bell, and I live over on First Street off of Silsby. And LP and I, my husband and I have been there since 2013. Moved in June of 2013. We moved from the west side of Cleveland. I grew up in Lyndhurst. And my house actually has the same exact floor plan as the house. So there's a good feeling about the house. As soon as you walk in, I said, oh. And before choosing that one, we had looked at 6 or 7 houses. Reason we moved here was LP at the time worked for the Cleveland Heights University Heights Public Library on Lee Road. And so we wanted to be closer to his, so he could walk to work. We were a 1-car family at that point. And it worked really well. Just doing that with 1 car was something that was important. So we moved here, and the first thing that I did when we were looking at the house is I walked from the library to the house and just looked around and said hi to a bunch of people that were on the sidewalks walking. It just felt like a good place, and still feels like a good place. One of the things that I value about our city is that it is walkable and that people like walking. That people like walking their children, walking their dogs. Helping and I joke that to live here, you either have to have a baby.
You have.
We don't have one, but we're a cat family. It just feels like people like being out and about in the city, and I like that. The reason that I'm running, or that I put my name in for this seat, and that I choose, or I'm planning on running fall, is I am finding myself more and more invested and interested in what is happening next. I think that as an individual, I do not trust large systems. I think that the smaller you can make a system, the more equitable and the better run it will be. And so to live in a city this small, surrounded by larger cities, and to have government that is this small and this connected to the residents of the city really intrigues me. I think that y'all have such an impact on the daily lives of the residents that gladly, thankfully, we don't notice because we shouldn't have to. Hopefully, the things that are happening in the government are happening in such a way that we can go about our daily lives and not have to pay attention. You know, obviously, sometimes that doesn't work. Obviously, right now, there are different ways in which our government is having difficulty on certain issues. Obvious. It's everyone from the administration council has done a lot of work. I mean, especially with all of the work that you've put into trying to figure out what do you believe is the best way to fix our recycling and garbage. And I know that the mayor has put in a ton of work, and that everyone else on this council has put in a lot of work. Sometimes those relationships that exist to help the city run so smooth that we don't notice what is happening, that doesn't work. Those are the areas where I love to be. I feel that I have good skills in building bridges and in helping people find consensus that makes the most sense for everyone involved. Everyone has to give and take, but there is a middle ground that has to be found if you're going to move forward. And if you can't move forward, then that issue goes out to the side, it gets tabled, and you'll come back. Because for me, the most important thing within a group, within a government, within a family, within friendships, is to find that consensus where each person is being treated equitably, each person is having at least some of their needs met. Each person feels like they have buy-in to whatever is happening. And if that isn't able to happen, then we move on, we deal with others. I like coming into situations and being able to fix things that aren't necessarily working, or to help fix things that aren't working. I was a farmer for about a decade, urban farming, and farmed down in the Cuyahoga Valley. And my specialty was coming onto farms or starting farms from scratch so that I could do all the heavy lifting and all the hard brain work, get something going or to fix something, so that the person who came after me had a much easier time with this. I liked doing it. It's very hard, but it felt good. It felt right to have something that you can hold and say, this isn't exactly what it needs to be, and I'm going to put all the effort I have to make it what it more into what it needs to. As having a lot of different interaction with, granted that was soil and with bugs and lettuce and cuts, and everything, a little different when you go in. You have the same skills that are needed with patience, integrity, honesty, openness, communication skill. I like being able to be as open and honest with people as possible. I don't like to hide behind words that aren't exactly what you mean. I'm quite simple. So if I'm thinking something, you're going to know what I'm thinking, and I'm going to tell you as honestly as
What are some of the major issues concerns that you?
Some of the issues that I hear most often, probably the first one that I hear are the high tax. I don't mind paying taxes. I like what taxes give us. I think government works well when it's funded. So although it may not be an issue for me, it definitely is an issue. And I think that goes hand in hand with the garbage issue that we face. People feel like if they're going to pay high taxes, you want to have what people understand. I think that it makes sense for people to experience on a regular basis that they're getting what they pay. So obviously taxes are a large issue. I don't think that's going anywhere though. That we are who we are. We are a small city whose most of our land is full. And the land that is not full, we're trying to reimagine. And correct. Correct. Sadly, I think the garbage and recycling issue is a large issue. I don't think it needs to be. I would love it personally if we just moved on, and that people who supported a change to curbside continue to do as much education and as much supporting of that idea as possible in a way that is helpful for people listening. I think that clearly through the different surveys, we've heard that the majority of people who have responded like what we're doing. And so if that's what we've heard, then let's go ahead and move on to much more important issues. I do think that right now, sadly, we're at a turning point where too often the credibility of our city government is being questioned. And I disagree with that tactic. I think that in order to make sure that our city government runs well, people need to stop questioning its credibility. And in order to do that, they may need to be more connected with government. They may need to hear more from government, to have a more open and honest government that shares as much as possible. But also they need to stop listening to certain people who want to make it seem like either the administration is corrupt or council is secretive and corrupt. And we need to find consensus again and come to the middle. Because I've met all of you, and because it's common sense, it's clear to see that the people who are working in our government, on our council, actually care about it's obvious, but I think there's too much separation now. And so I think there is an issue in our city of not knowing enough of what is happening. Not having enough communication lines between the cities. Financially, I think we're doing wonderful. Although there are some big boulders that are standing in our way, such as our sewers. And figuring out how to tackle those in a comprehensive way is something that I think needs to be at the forefront. Council is doing and what administration is doing, because that is huge. That our neighbors are being really hit right now with mandates of paying more, and I would love to find a way to be more proactive than we have been. I know that we started working already. Do more than we have been in solving, because that is a huge issue. Not just financially, but our sewers are wrong. I mean, we're sending the wrong things into the system. And from an ecological point of view, I think we can do better.
Thank you. I'm gonna skip around a little bit, Brian.
What would you like to?
So what I like about council is that each person brings their own. I would simply like to be a council person that is able to be as communicative as possible with residents. I would like to be a council person that helps to connect the administration and council as much as through open dialogue. And I know that many people already attend. I would like to add to that, continue that. When I think of what type of council person I want to be and what I want to, I love the idea of everybody, as many people in the city being as connected as possible. And there are many different ways to do that. And that's what primes my pump or turns me on most about thinking about being on council, is being able to connect with residents as much as possible. Because when I listen to meetings or when I come to meetings, the agenda items that council works on are infinitely interesting and important to what we are doing on a daily basis, to what we experience. So I think communication is at the top of my list, that I would like to be a council person that connects with residents as much as possible and helps them to connect to what is happening in their city. That would be a huge goal of mine.
Minute and a half left.
To share a challenging situation, perhaps one in time, and how you address it. You face personal profession.
I feel like such a cliche sharing this, but this is for any queer person. Conflict is something that they have faced in huge ways. I used to be a pastor at a couple different churches. One in the Evangelical Friends Church, and then one was in the as a queer person who discovered that I was gay when I was just becoming a Christian. That scared the pants. Now what's going to happen to me now? Really, as a pastor in the church, the second church that I was a pastor in was preaching. And I told them up front, I said, I need you to know, as a small church, I need you to know that I'm okay. It's fine. Okay. And it's the same response that you get often, like most people have not met, or at that time have not met a gay. So the preaching pastor there for about a year. And he didn't like the progressive nature of my teaching. And so he decided to attack me the easy way. He said, well, I can't have you teach because you're gay. That was I said, okay, okay, this is your church. And I sat and had discussions with people in the church about what was happening. But I decided to step away from that church. And I understood that the integrity of that group and who they were was a lot more important than my feelings or my autonomy as an individual. And I said, what's important for you is to be who you are. And to not accommodate me if your beliefs can't accommodate me. And I will step away from this situation. And I'll leave your church because that's what you have to do. The one leader who asked. The parishioners didn't want me to leave. But to me, in that situation, it was much more important for that community to figure things out, but to also honor their traditions, than for me to try to shoehorn myself into that situation and say, well, you're going to have to accommodate, and you're going to have to figure out how to have me here. I let them be who they were, and I stepped away from that situation. Knowing that for me, it was more important that the community stay intact because they're very small, family oriented, and it wasn't my job to try to fix it. I can only live my life and allow others to live theirs, and hopefully we can with clear ideas.
Thank you for sharing that.
I love that you,
Painful experience. of
It
service.
was a freeing experience. Truly, it was. I mean, there's a lot that all of us go through because of who we are. And so we've all experienced those decisions that although you have to break ties, there is freedom involved.
It's not about any.
Community.
We are not.
super
those
important.
are-
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. The community is, I mean, it's what sets us apart as a species. Is our need for community, in the way that we do community. I value that.
thank you so much. And words for us?
What I wanted to say, what has been on the forefront of my mind, since being invited was, first of all, thank you very much. This means a lot that I am able to just, talk with you and be interviewed by you, but what a hard decision you'll have. The applicants, when I read through the applicants' resumes, I am so excited for any four of the people that are running other than me to be chosen or to win in November or both. I just think that although Justin's shoes are very big, I think whoever fills that position is going to be really great. I'm excited for our next one.
We're very blessed. Amazing.
They were great. And I think what's great is that we have this process where many people can win for many different reasons in an election. But as a council, you get to choose somebody who has the correct resume, who has the correct additions and abilities to make your council even better. And I think that's a really important stance you find yourself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I want to thank the audience as well. This will conclude the public hearings. We're going to go into executive session now. And we will at 10:15. 10:15 council meeting. We're gonna just vote though. So. Yeah, we're gonna come on. Is there a motion on executive session? So moves.
Second.
Yes.
Okay. Looking good, Brian.
Like some water?
I don't think it was.
It's okay.
Well,
It should say at the top.
You know what? It does say it there.
You know,